Well, hello everyone, welcome. Tonight, I'm the guest speaker of this study group.
Yay.
Thank you. And tonight's talk is going to be Heavenly Cults. What did I say it was again? Heavenly Cults influenced by Alien Contactees. Okay, so now firstly, I guess one of the first things is that there's a trick word in there, and that's cults. Because cults really depends on, well, it's a word that has negative connotations, and a cult isn't necessarily a negative thing. It depends really on the culture that you're in. For example, in the early days in America or Australia, a group of Hindus coming to the country and setting up were considered a cult because it was an unusual religion, and so at that stage it was a cult. So the same thing would probably apply if you were in a country that was Islamic and you were setting up a Roman Catholic or Judaic religion there. You would be considered a cult simply because you are very few amongst the many. And that's one thing to keep in mind, I guess, when we're talking about the kind of cults I'm talking about, which are cults based on ufology. Now, not all ufologists are cultists. Don't make that mistake. I've been a ufologist for over 30 years, and I'm certain that I'm not someone who is related in any way to any cults based on ufology. So, with that out of the way, I guess the other question is, what has it got to do with theosophy? And I guess it's been a problem, something that I've struggled with for years. Does ufology have anything to do with theosophy? And I think when you look at it in the technical terms that I've looked at in ufology before, the scientific approaches and that type of thing that are a part of ufology make it a part of theosophy, because of theosophy's creed of looking at things like religion, science and nature, very broadly speaking. UFO cults, though, do exist, and the cults are in many ways religious in orientation, not so much religious in the form of our God or a God, but more so in way of looking at the aliens themselves as their gods. So almost like a secular belief that there is a religious component to their alien people. Yeah, okay, Diane? Need some water?
Do you need water?
But anyway, this is only going to be fairly short. I thought I'd just give you an introduction anyway. Now, there are many groups out there who have started off as a contact. Someone has supposedly been walking in a field and mysteriously walked past a tree or something, and all of a sudden they're contacted by aliens and they're taken on board their spacecraft and taken away, and the universe has explained to them what they're doing, and they're going to be the new Messiah or something like this. And it seems to be quite a few people claim this. Now, there are some of us, or at least one of us in this room, who claims to be a contactee, but has never claimed to be a Messiah, simply to be one who was contacted. And I'm not saying who the person is, but
It's you.
but in any event, it was a long time ago, as far as I recall. And
I don't
was only
doubt. I've had my little alien encounters too.
But you know what I'm saying? It's not something, haven't set myself up as a church or a religion or any of these other things that could make a lot of money, which some of these organisations can and do. But if you would like to leave your money at the altar over there, they had to take you in.
We only take blood-snick chicks.
Once up at Foster saw something in the sky that but my sister and I saw it. It was a UFO in the sense it was an unidentified object, right? But the interesting thing that next day in the newspaper, it was reported all the way down the coast that people saw something in the sky, so there was obviously something there. Now whether it was a weather balloon, no, it wasn't a weather balloon. I saw something hovering.
Yeah. I was going to, sorry, I thought you were going to give an explanation of the Roswell incident there, that, yeah, it was a weather balloon.
No. It was just one of those
about
things.
to start channeling.
It's just one of those events where we were in a camping ground and we saw this thing and we said it looks like a UFO. And then the next day it was reported there'd been something unexplainable in the sky, so we saw what everyone else saw.
Yeah, something unexplainable. An
Would you
unidentified
like some
flying
water,
object.
Di?
And
We
I
have some filtered water for Di.
Oh, no, I had a... I've got a...
I'll get your water.
No, I've got a
Just have
tube
coffee
here.
for it.
Okay.
Do you want some water?
No,
I've
no.
got the tea.
We don't want you to fall over on us, Diane. We don't want you to fall over on us.
Alright.
And the more I try to stifle it, the worse it gets.
Yeah, just cough.
Very dedicated with the theosophy saying you come up twice a month. Good on you.
Well, to name a few of the organisations, or the alien cults, we have the Aetherius Society, one of them. Another is Heaven's Gate. Of course, we've all probably heard of Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, they put Nikes on and died, didn't they?
They're the ones.
So long ago.
The Raelians, they're my favourite.
Oh, no.
Now, they made some claims of cloning, didn't
Oh, yes, they have,
just
yeah.
recently. But
the
no
Inarius.
evidence has come forward from the Raelians, has it?
Sorry?
No evidence has come forward of their cloning?
They kind of went underground after a while.
Yeah, they did.
The Inarius Academy of Science and the Urantia. They're just to name a few. And I thought I'd just have a quick look at some of them. Now, the Aetherius Society was one that was founded by a fellow by the name of George King. George King. He died in 1997. His organisation claimed to have a membership between 2,000 and 10,000. And they, what was their thing? Oh, that's right. He was the one who had the channeling experiences, I guess you could call them, where he claimed that transmissions were received by him when he attempted to undertake some yogic experiences. And once he'd done that, it became clear to him that he was the chosen contact of Aetherius. Or Aetherius, I think that was his name, yeah. And these messages are received telepathically, and of course they tell the world. Now keep in mind this was founded about 1950, I think 1955, 1950, around about the same time as the one by George Adamski. Now, this all occurs after World War II. It's all after the atomic bombs, obviously, and the thing that comes through in a lot of these cults is brotherly love, caring for each other, not having the bomb, all these things, which make sense anyway. Why would you want the bomb? But it comes about. It's this thing that seems to be a genuine push by all of these people to have this kind of world of peace and caring and loving and sharing for everyone. You sure you're okay?
You know what I've started, Joey.
I don't mind, it just don't you.
Once you start coughing, that's it.
I
The
don't-
throat gets more irritated, I reckon.
And you take our
Are you
service.
sure you're okay?
Please don't choke on your lolly.
Oh dear.
Have we got
Yeah, but
any cough decongestion? We do, don't we? We do.
Just
cost
as
to
the piece of news, Diane is choking on some Tibetan dust.
And it's not influenced by UFOs.
We're waiting for a channeling to come clearly through here.
Oh, that could be some ectoplasm now, I'm seeing. You reminded me of some ectoplasm I saw the other day. It was so fake.
I saw ectoplasm around the pyramids of Giza. I only ever seen it once,
Yeah.
and that was there.
What is
Yeah.
the preferred background on
I think that's what they would have called it.
Yeah,
So
just the ones I've seen have been so fake. It's either been a woolen or cotton stuff, or
Have you seen that poltergeist where they have like the ectoplasm and then that where he comes out of the...
well, Ghostbusters, where it's that green jelly
Yeah, the
kind of
green-
stuff.
No, where that comes from, sort of...
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be just a byproduct of
But is it Hollywood or...
no, it is supposed to be a byproduct of some ghostly encounters, but whether you can actually believe it or not.
Okay.
I've seen things like when I was, it's off the topic, but when I was at the Spiritualist Church once or twice, I saw some things there that
Want
were
a shot of that?
quite scary.
Because I wonder if
Cough
there's like
indigestion.
the PK or whatever the bishop
Okay.
is
Alright.
with that
It's been in the
proper
fridge.
sensitivity of it.
Expires August
Like if it's
2007.
from and I know no, like
That
a
works,
PK
that's
meter
Does it? I don't use it much, but
to actually detect it. See, all this misusing of
15 mils, I think.
10 meals 4 times a day. Keep going on.
This Dr. George King, or George King, who became a doctor somehow, claimed that he had these cosmic transmissions, reception of these cosmic transmissions, etc., and that the Society's beliefs are sometimes deemed to be similar to Theosophy. This is what I was mentioning earlier. They are similar in that they both share, in part at least, the occult traditions of both East and West. The teachings of the Aetherius Society, according to this, are expressed in a language that is much more straightforward and direct, and so are much easier to understand than many theosophical writings.
Yeah, you can have some more of it later if you want.
And another point of major divergence from Theosophy and most other spiritual movements is that the transmissions, which form the basis of the Society's teachings, show a marked concern with the dangers of atomic experimentation and of humanity's inability to monitor all of its effects or to control it. That reminded me of another fellow, I don't know if you remember Orgone Energy.
Yeah, Willem Reich.
Was it Trevor Constable? Or?
Willem Reich, Orgon.
Oh, yeah. You remember the controversies surrounding that and the suggestions that he was faking it and all these other kind of things. I guess with him too, he claimed to be able to see it. He claimed to be able to show it in photography and in video photography and the like. But other people weren't so sure, they just thought it was flares on cameras and all those type of things. So kind of things that aren't scientifically provable, I guess.
So what's an example where you could see it?
Well, they claim that some of the footage on the moon, for example, showed Orgone energy surrounding the space suits of the astronauts, which was like a light blue tinge around the suits.
There's a photograph of that at Gracegrove College actually where I
Yeah.
lecture, and there's an astronaut on the moon and he's enveloped in the auric egg,
Yeah,
and you can see very clearly
yeah.
that there's definitely an energy auric egg is how we define it.
Yeah.
And the photograph.
I guess his stuff too, he filmed UFOs. Couldn't be described as flying saucers. They were objects that you certainly couldn't describe as being anything else other than undescribable, unidentified objects that were in the sky. Whether they're flying or not is another thing. A lot of the cases they look like giant amoebas in the sky. And he was able to film them using a technique which was something akin to magic, I think, in a way, in that he was able to judge the exact moment that they were able to appear in the sky and film them using, I think, a certain shutter speed or something and a certain film, and the type of film he used showed up this image of this type of amoeba type thing, which were supposedly giant creatures which fed off the Earth's atmosphere and off the Earth, of humans as well. And orgone energy, from what I understand, is supposed to be like an interaction between the two, like it's you're seeing the feeding of that energy from humans or from Earth to these creatures. So they're not supposedly very good, nice creatures. They're like kind of vampires, if you like, of the UFO.
Wouldn't that be like? Surely that's like that could esoterically be explained as a projection of our own energies into the astral world. It's not necessarily something alien. I mean, you know, like we've got our own various levels, the etheric, the astral body, and, you know, the causal and the rest of it. I mean, and all our crap that we throw out there, you know, energy is thought and thought is energy. I mean, it could be a manifestation or a phenomenon that we've created.
Yeah.
You know, like as a collective. You've got this whole collective that's pretty sick at the moment when you think about what's going on in the world, really. I mean, so, of course, we're going to be creating stuff out in the astral world. You know,
there's also elementals that are out there too that are neither good nor bad. They're simply different.
They're there.
They're part of the evolutionary process.
Yeah, and the Earth too, the consciousness of the Earth, I read somewhere that in itself's got its own astral shield around it, and then it goes off and has its own bodies as well.
So it could be like Chi or Fallon, or about like the Earth's energies, or people might call it Gaia, or like the Earth energies. And that surrounds everything. Like we produce like our own body energies, and that's what I reckon it could be. But like it could be like some kind of unknown mystic energy, but it's yet to be explained or yet to be exploited.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
It's strange though too, Tony, because I think it was a couple of months ago I found on the web, I probably should have kept it, bookmarked it or something, but there was this Negro guy, and he's able, he claims, to call in UFOs at will. He contacted a local LA TV station, and they said, all right. And he said, well, you name the place and time and I'll be there. And they did. And it was a football field. And they were there with the cameras and the crew, and he just stood in the middle of there, did his prayer to Yahweh, that's who he was calling, and there's this phenomena, and it's all filmed, and it freaked everyone out, and this is what this guy does, you know. and you could hear the TV crew going, what's that? You know, look at this. And he called it, and they named the place. He didn't, or the time.
I wonder if Christianity or all religions could be like a UFO cult. Like they say, God came from Alpha Centauri. So I wonder if it could be based on something like that. So that's perspective of what one calls UFO cult or one calls mainstream religion.
Well, I mean,
seeded off world, no doubt about it.
Well, a lot of these cults do claim that type of thing, and although the Etherians don't really say that, but one of their things is that they claim that they were told about 4 hours before Chernobyl disaster that it was happening, and what they had to do was to set up a prayer vigil to prevent it becoming too bad in that 4-hour period. And they eased the reaction of what it was actually going to be by this prayer that they all said. And I think I've actually got a photograph of the Ethereans here. It's a bit hard to tell because it's in a silver type of colour.
Wouldn't be such a bad idea. Like, if power of thought or prayer, like, changes this, like, orca energy or this, Fallon energy, and like to create positive entropy of a situation.
I'm not going to find them now. Was that sorry?
Like, obviously, like, prayer, and that, changes the positive energies to create positive entropy of the situation.
What's that?
It's a silver painting, silver drawing.
Yeah.
And what they've got, there's this device here that they've built. This was their George, whatever his name is, George King, his creation. It was I think some kind of psychic resonance or spiritual energy radiator. There's this thing on a tripod here, and they're all standing around with their hands in this kind of position, all praying to this, well, not actually praying to the device, but sending their prayers to the device, so it will then magnify that prayer power and do what they need to do with it, whatever it is, whether it's to send love and peace to the rest of the world or whatever, or to stop something happening or make it a less of an effect or whatever. So anyone saying that this particular group isn't in some way displaying a religious type of connotation is sadly mistaken. They definitely do display a religious type of characteristic.
But if I can make it, and that, like, it seems possible.
Well, I mean, you don't know. It's the kind of thing, how can you prove it?
Is it psychosomatic? Or?
No, but how can you prove that the results that they got from that device were real or not?
What did you say that they could do?
What the device supposedly does is it magnifies their prayer power to be able to help in an issue, whatever it may be, whether it's to help you get over a disaster or prevent a disaster happening or any of these other kind of things.
Yeah, so
how can you prove it? It's the kind of thing you can't
like a placebo thing too?
Maybe, but how can you prove it?
Also, it could be just a focusing of thought forms of the thought energy of the people.
Exactly.
And
Which
it
could
may
actually
have an effect in the long term.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't know about you, but I remember in the 1980s when things were getting really scary with Ronald Reagan and the idea that the button was going to be pressed pretty soon because the guy had an itchy finger.
Yeah.
And everyone was getting pretty scared about the Russians and the Americans and nuclear weapons and the like. And a call went out to people to put a protective layer over the Earth, a psychic projection over the Earth to protect it. Now, the people, a lot of people took heed, including, like, I happened to be involved in the Spiritualist Church at the time, and so I knew that's how I knew about it. And one of the things we did, we put protective white light over ourselves and then saw the same thing happening to the Earth. And everyone did it around about the same time. And things started to ease off. Now, whether that was just a psychological thing or whether it was actually the thought forms were actually created that solidified action that stopped these things happening, who knows? But nonetheless, it was still an interesting period of time. But
Anything's possible, that's mine.
well, yeah, and you just don't know. But when it comes to these other groups too, coming back to this Aetherius group, some of their core beliefs. Now, this is similar to many of the same type of groups. Probably the most important belief of the society is that service to mankind is the most essential yoga or religion in these days. So they if it's not called religious, they have another name for it, but it's still something which is very caring, sharing type of attitude. They also believe that the principle underpins most of the society's activities, which are designed to radiate spiritual energy to the world in order to have a beneficial effect. And their motto is, service is the jewel in the rock of attainment. They claim that Jesus, Buddha, Krishna and certain other great religious leaders were of extraterrestrial origin and came to Earth to help mankind. Many of the other organisations claim the same thing. There is only one God. In this sense, all major religions are similar in nature and all religions' paths are leading towards the same ultimate end. Spiritual people should cooperate with each other since they have a greater power when working together. Makes sense. Karma and reincarnation are considered two natural, all-pervasive laws of God. That there is advanced intelligent life on other planets. Well, I'm sure most people would hope that, if not believe it. Unidentified flying objects really are intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft visiting this Earth. I have a 50-50 on that one. Yes, I do agree with that, but I also believe there are man-made ones as well. Unlike some UFO groups, their belief is that extraterrestrials are friendly and are here to help mankind in its development. A belief that man, and indeed all life, is a divine spark of the Creator. This is where it comes into the theosophical thing, I think. And our God, and that Earth is a classroom on the evolutionary ladder of life back to the source from which all came, which is similar to theosophical ideas. Mother Earth is a living, breathing entity which is thousands of lives more evolved than we are. And that'd be interesting to someone who's studying Gaia at the moment. You're doing a talk on it pretty soon, aren't you?
I'm working on putting some sort of course together. Right, yeah.
Now they consider yoga and meditation as very important. George King is deemed to be a master of yoga, or a master of their religion, a very advanced and rare stage of attainment that he gained through bringing about conscious control over the power of Kundalini, the primordial life force. In common with traditional yogic teaching, Aetherians deep meditation, or samadhi, to be an experiential state of adeptship when the soul is bathed in the light of pure spirit and one becomes a knower of truth. Mantras is also frequently repeated during services of the group. So they, once again, I don't think there's any way of saying that they're not in their essence religious.
To me that sounds like they've just gone and grabbed the Eastern kind of spiritualities as such, formed their own little breakaway group and called themselves the Aetherians with just a bit of a different flavour to them. I mean, what you've just read now is Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever. It's like it's the basis of theosophy in a way, isn't it?
Yes, but the only difference is that the mainstream theosophical teachings don't talk about beings from outer space.
No.
And they don't have a guru. They're not supposed to.
Although we talk of logos and those, but they're
higher states of consciousness.
Yeah, they're not actually beings from outer space.
With all these things, I don't think there's any hard and fast rules in it, so I don't want to be taken literally, but my understanding from the TS writings was that entities on other planets are part of their own cycles and they're not allowed to interfere in ours. It's a little bit like the Star Trek thing of not interfering. So the idea of people coming to help and guide us doesn't really fit in with that theosophical thing, because in theosophy it's saying we do it within ourselves, within the human evolution. There are the beings who are more evolved because...
And they're on their own journey, aren't they? Which is all part of the greater cosmos, which is a part of the greater unity of the divine and the rest of it. But we're all... Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So Buddha is not seen as someone coming from outside, he's someone who's evolved within the system. But having said that, Siddhartha Buddha, or the Prince Siddhartha, is said to be the first of our humanity to have reached that state of consciousness. But there was a previous Buddhas before him, and they were not part of Earth. They were part of a previous chain. And they hold that office, and then he actually speeded up his own evolution and got to that point and took over. So at that higher state of consciousness there is interstellar movement, but it's a different level to spaceships.
Yeah.
It'd be quite. It sounds like you're sort of talking about, like the masters, where each master's almost given a different quadrant of the universe that they're looking after. Is that what you mean? Like they're.
Well, the adepts themselves, I was saying the TS adepts, they're still part of this chain, but that once you get past a certain level of consciousness expands to a point where it's said that each one of us one day will be a solar logos, that we will be the sun of another system, and our consciousness will be the whole solar system. So, but the I is gone then. It's nothing to do with I as a personality. That's to do with whatever it is that operates the...
Because it stands to reason that once you do that, then you can go beyond that again too, and then beyond that, and beyond that, and beyond that.
Like that sense of self, you lose that, and it becomes the S with the big S, and
So just wonder, like,
the true self. And
if consciousness is all things like could be explained on the physical level, like I was looking at the light, we have the light. Maybe consciousness could be like of like a different level of like matter or science. And
Well,
it could be like a wave, or it could be like something that we can't explain, but one day it's the size, they can like explain it, put like like a rating, or like a spectrum rating, like they have.
I don't know about spectrum rating, but it's said that in one sense consciousness is light.
Yeah. Well,
But
it could be like the fifth force of nature. In that way, like find out what it is, and then they could like enhance it or do something.
I don't think
or like
it's already
open up
enhanced.
doorways.
It's more a matter of the vehicle down here being enhanced to understand it. It itself is already
it's
there.
I am the
I am, yes. It's more... I think sometimes we try to grasp these concepts with a mind that's hung down here with our own human concept of what is, but it's actually more a matter of the vehicle itself being refined for the light itself to shine more brightly,
Okay.
rather than us doing something to the light to make it think it is. It's not the light, it's us that's got to change.
Yeah.
One of the things that they all have in common, particularly all the what I would consider to be the religious cults of the alien abductees, or alien contactees, is, like you said, that they have a belief that it's from outside rather than from within, and that's where they grab their idea or concept of, if not God, of the religious value. It's from the aliens themselves, not from the God within. It's like I was saying before, almost like a secular God, if you like. They can't believe in a universal God, but they can believe in an alien who can take the place of God.
God, yes.
I remember Jung, he's written something on it, but he thought part of it was like something deep within the collective unconscious was looking outside of humanity, because our times were desperate, and there was failure in the system and blah blah blah, and that was part of his notion that the UFO phenomenon, because he was answering it from a psychological perspective, was a projection from that collective unconscious for redemption.
And certainly
we can't save ourselves, in a sense. I think he'd probably agree with that. It has to come from out, which we know is also
hence the
flawed.
monotheistic kind of religions and that we,
they say
we
the
look
same
outside
thing.
to God to come and save us. They're saying the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah, but I guess when you look at people like Adamski inside the spaceships and others, they all have that same kind of idea that the saviours are those who are coming from other planets to help us get through this really terrible, tough time. They're here to ensure that we don't blow ourselves to smithereens, that we don't pollute ourselves to death. that we don't make the same mistakes as we made millennia ago.
Well, they're
And-
failing at the moment, aren't they?
The suggestion, well,
I don't really. I don't think the world's worse. I think the world's
No.
better. It's just that we're more aware of its warts than what we once
Yeah.
were.
but this is, I'm talking about people like him.
Yeah.
George Adamski is now well and truly dead. He'd be over 120, I think, now or something. But when he wrote this book and other books on the subject of UFOs, he was writing at a time that it had only been a couple of years after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and he really felt that the world was going to blow itself up, and so did other groups at the time. And it's evident in their writings, it's evident in what they say, and it's evident in how famous he became. He and other people like him of his era, George King, like I just mentioned, and him, both took on the UFO circuit and become quite wealthy at the time. Adamski set up a property at Mount Palomar where he had a group living with him there. He didn't call them cultists or anything like that, but people who lived there with him, sharing his views and all that type of thing on alien contact and that kind of thing. He was the only one who had ever been contacted. None of the other members of his group were. And of course, he claimed to have gone around the solar system on a joy flight with the aliens. They took him around and they showed him the moon, they showed him other places, and particularly they showed him one of the craters of the moon where humans were going about their daily life on the moon without oxygen supplies, without anything else, and just driving around in their cars and living their lives on the moon.
That'd be a good excuse for a NASA mission.
Well, yeah, but he also claimed that they were on every other planet of the solar system as well.
More of an excuse.
So a little bit dated. But whether, if we're talking about an ethereal sense, well, maybe. Maybe it's possible that humans exist on different planets in the solar system, each and every one of them, and it doesn't matter because they're ethereal. Who knows?
Yes, the moon itself is said in theosophical terms to have been previously a planet.
Yep.
But what we see as the moon now is actually the core.
Yep.
It's not the outer mantle, so to speak, is no longer there. In fact, I think it became part of Earth's mantle. But the reality probably would be, if you went through time, you could be on the moon as a planet and have humanity, because it's said that our masters in the TS in that time were pet animals. No.
But
Some of our people were pets to the masters.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
As humans. So
But the moon would have almost like a duty or a dharma to the earth, because when you think about, there's a symbiosis there. When the earth would be like the whole tidal system, our weather conditions, everything would be like upside down without the moon. There's this dependency.
Yes,
It's a symbiotic relationship.
There's a very strong interconnection. Adamski makes the comment that it's a dying planet, and therefore there's actually, what's the word used, nefarious energies coming off it.
Yeah.
And I can understand that in the sense, if it's a decaying mass, there would be negative energies. But having said that, there's also positive energies, because the moon is the feminine in very symbolic things. Diana, etc., is all associated with the moon. And the Buddha, his whole religious festival of Wesak is on the moon, on the full moon. So it's there's good and bad in all these things. I just think it depends where you're focusing.
You would have been in the locality for Wesak
Yes.
too, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Well, the moon's highly connected to intuition and those sorts of things, isn't it? The feminine principles, like you said.
Yes.
So I've always adored the moon.
Yes. I think it's one of those things where
Cuts
on one
both
hand,
ways, I think.
it cuts both
doesn't
ways,
it,
because it's said that in, I think it's well known that in any mental institution, the the inmates
The
go
lunatic thing.
crazy
Yeah.
with the lunar
Mm.
full moon. So it obviously affects both the emotional, mental stability of our
I get
mind.
affected by full moon.
I sometimes do and sometimes don't.
Yeah, I
And of
do
course
think
our
the arms
feminine
start
side
getting very hairy.
But it's hard to
And the whole
differentiate.
period cycle is interconnected with the moon.
Because it's hard to like
Water,
differentiate all things. If
emotional
it's a psychosomatic
effect.
thing, like something that would be brought up in our environment, our lives, like superstition, for example, to like an actual general, like an actual thing, like a thing that we can explain to versus like a psychosomatic phenomenon
Mm.
that people have.
Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, that's a funny one.
Yeah.
Are they the guys that killed themselves?
Yeah, they certainly are. They were definitely a cult led by Marshall Applewhite
That's
and
right.
Bonnie
I've
Nettles.
just seen a picture of him in my mind just
With
there.
the
Yeah.
Nikes,
He
they're
had
the
no
Nike
sense
guys.
of humour, that guy. That was
No,
the problem.
No, I don't think they did. Yeah.
There's something terribly wrong though with people
Well,
that do these.
That was hitching a ride on Hale Bob or something.
No, they weren't.
wasn't it?
No.
Sponsored by Nikes.
The ethereal spacecraft that
Yeah.
they were going to hitch a ride on
Mm,
was actually on the other side of
the comet.
of the comet.
Mm.
So it couldn't be seen by Earth, but they knew that it would be there. And to get to it, they had to commit suicide so that they could, their ethereal bodies could go to it. Now, we've got no way of proving that they're wrong. That they're wrong, have we? I
It's
mean,
all past the stone.
I wonder if it was
We don't
sponsored
know.
by Nike.
well,
Like,
Only a minute.
sponsored by Nike.
well,
like
they
commercial
may
time.
have been.
Yeah.
They may have been, because in the end, their only means of income was setting up websites for people.
Yeah.
Stephen, come and sit here.
Are people comfortable and the temperature is
Move
too
that out of the
hot?
way so
Oh,
the
I'm
guy
fine.
can come in.
Alright.
Because if like sponsored by Nike or like on a hidden level of the taxation.
But then again, they also wrote a book called How to Build a UFO, and describing an interplanetary spacecraft built out of materials such as old tyres. But
That's what that guy's doing in Canada.
But the scary thing about these guys isn't really the fact that these 39 people actually killed themselves, but that there isn't actually another organisation now called Heaven's Gate, the Next Generation.
Oh God, no.
Now how stupid you have to be to call your cult Heaven's Gate, the Next Generation? And are they planning on the same thing? One of the other things, the relationship to Star Trek, goes back to one of the members of the group, a fellow by the name of Thomas Nichols, who was the brother of Nichelle Nichols from the original Star Trek.
Yeah.
So,
But in a way, like they do have like a valid point. Like if death is a transition to life to get out of all the pain and misery.
well,
Like if there's a thing after the death. But because it's fair to say there's a like UFO or not, it's only the death that is the most important thing.
well, you know, but I mean,
They had to have a valid point there.
there's no way of proving that they're wrong.
Yeah, but as long as they're happy.
Their ethereal bodies met up with an ethereal spaceship and took off around the galaxy. I mean, how are we to know?
But as long as they were happy in it.
It's just something that I find quite bizarre. Having
You don't
experienced
sort
them,
of need to kill yourself
no, I
to
mean,
do that travelling anyway.
Well,
That
you know, I mean,
happens, doesn't
you know, what out of body experiences are like. I mean, I claim to have had a couple, and I know that. Well, I did board one of those things and was jettisoned off it. But anyway,
How old were you when you had your contact?
first contact was probably about 3 or 4.
3 years old.
3 or 4. Was a
And do you
toddler.
remember just being taken up, whatever, wherever? For how long?
That I can't tell you.
So the soul was on the tractor beam going up into the UFO.
No tractor beam. Walked up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Were beamed up by Scotty.
No, but I'll just go on to the Raelians while we're here. The Raelians, okay, they're my pet hate. The Raelians, their leader, Claude wrote this book. He wrote a lot of other books since, but this was his first real book, Space Aliens Took Me to Their Planet.
It's like Charlie Manson.
Now, he does look a bit that way. Now, of course, this is his 1970s garb. So now he has a very trendy pigtail hair swept back. He wears a white robe.
No,
He's known as the last Messiah. They're not religious according to him, and yet he is called the last Messiah. In the same kind of vein as Buddha, Jesus, and every other. He was taken to the Elohim's planet. The Elohim being, of course, the creators of the earth and mankind. The Elohim were scientists, not gods, scientists from another planet who chose to muck around with DNA, create clones of themselves, and we humans are the byproduct of that cloning process. The Elohim is a plural term meaning more than one from the sky.
It's Jewish.
Gods from the sky, or people from the sky. So the Bible got it wrong when it's supposedly claiming that it was a God who had the light and all that kind of stuff, crossed the water, whatever. It was the gods that come into the earth.
Oh, actually, in the Bible, though, it says the Elohim said, "Let us make man in our own image."
That's right. And this
them.
is what he claims. And that the Elohim are these people from this other planet who took him to their planet, introduced him to Buddha and Jesus and all the others who were still alive, and also this guy was 27 in 1973, I think it was, when he was first contacted. So at the time, he just missed out in a sexual revolution.
You sure he hasn't never been diagnosed as schizophrenic?
No. He just missed out in the sexual revolution. So what he did, I think, was set up this group so he'd get as much free sex as he wanted. Because basically the cult...
I hate cults.
Basically...
Well, it's no good
They're
being
counterproductive.
cult leader if you can't have your little harem.
Basically, this was one of their newsletters.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Where do I join?
It was something
Raelians.
about having free sex and all that kind of stuff. And having as many sexual partners because
That's really...
it was about cloning.
Where do I join?
According to them, according to him, human beings were clones. That human beings could be cloned, and so the aliens, they took him to their planet, and they said to him, "Right, you like a sexual partner for the evening?" Oh, yeah, okay. What would you like? Blonde, brunette, redhead, what? And he had to just say what he wanted, and they dialed it up in this machine, and out it come out the end. Fully developed human, no prior existence, no prior life, there for his own pleasure, there for him to do with whatever he wanted. And apparently he had about 5 of them in that one evening, all supposedly like this. When he gets back to Earth, of course, he founds this organisation, and because he can't have clones at that stage, he sets up this this religion where they it's all about free love and making love with each other and all that kind of stuff, which goes on to this very day. He formed Clone Aid about 1997, and that's when they started claiming that they had cloned humans. The idea, of course, is so that he can keep on creating his own clones, so he can keep on doing what he was doing on the planet with the aliens. And that's my way of looking at him. I think he's a fruitcake.
You will at least once a year make a gift equal to 1/100th of your annual income to the Guide of Guides,
Yes.
in order to help him devote himself totally to his mission and to travel around the world to spread
It's
this
supposed
Now,
to be
message.
intolerant.
the Guide
It's
of
the ultimate.
Guides-
I can't cope.
Now, the Guide of Guides is this guy, the Guide of Guides.
I figured
Now,
that.
he claims it's not a religion, and yet he's called the last Messiah.
Yeah.
But is he a fruitcake or a genetic scientist?
I think he's a sexual predator
Yeah,
himself.
but like the people who created Dolly the sheep, like were
Well,
they fruitcakes or scientists?
Different
No,
story.
this is though nothing to do with sheep. He claims that he's cloning humans and then he's exploiting them. So, you know, I mean, that's a little bit far-fetched, really.
Yeah,
No,
like it is.
no, he's not
Genetic
claiming.
engineering.
The aliens, create
yeah.
clones for their own sexual pleasure, and they don't have any previous life. It's just adult straight away.
Projecting his own sickness onto the aliens.
This is where I think it all comes from. But he had an amazing ability to get all this stuff about the religious stuff written up so that people could almost think it's right. We talk about the Elohim and all these type of things,
Yeah,
and he
that's-
cites all these examples in the Bible.
He's quoting biblical text through the hair.
Well, so did Charles Manson, like, hello.
Maybe so. But so that was an interesting part with him.
What if it's all truth?
I
Agrees.
personally
just no
believe
one's
there's
got the
something
full
quite
monopoly.
psychotic about some of these
It
Now-
does have a sentiment of truth
cult
to it.
leaders. You know, there's a lot of
That's
this
what I was
exploitation,
saying.
manipulation of other
Snippets
human
every-
beings. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
that whole energy and like their whole kundalini, which is supposed to be channeled into the higher consciousness, hasn't even left the root chakra.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
The scary thing about these guys is that they're still around, and that they're still promoting these type of ideals. They claim that that the Elohim are going to come back when they've got their great embassy built in. It's supposed to be built in Jerusalem, but Jerusalem won't have a bar on. And particularly because at the time, if you look at the front page, the front cover, you'll see that the emblem has the swastika inside the Star of David. That's why they won't have it, particularly because of that. Now, they'd probably say the same thing about theosophy because of the
But that's a
swastika in it as
Tibetan
well.
sign.
I know, but still, in that sense, where it's inside the Star of David, they would probably. That's the
funded
reason
and stuff.
behind
Yeah,
it.
they
So
would.
apparently, about 4 or 5 years ago, they did change the emblem to be the Star of David with a galaxy inside it. So the aim is still to try to get there, but apparently Lebanon has suggested that they would take it, this embassy that they're talking about. But I think they've knocked them back. The organisation has knocked Lebanon back. Now, the next group is the Unarius group. Now, they're not so much
How
a
do you
cult.
say them?
Unarius, Unarius. It was founded by Ruth and I forget the guy's name. The Normans, anyway. I don't know if, now they're both dead now, but I don't know if you may have seen the photograph of them before. Their group, or Ernest, that was him, Ernest. He died in 1971, she died in 1993. They've since been taken over by another fellow, but and they continue to exist, having been created in 1954. Their aim was to try to get people to understand the interdimensional sciences that were dictated to them by a higher authority. And with them, although they do have a lot of people involved in them, I wouldn't consider them the same kind of category as the Raelians or the Adamskis or any of those, because they are fairly benign in what they do. Certainly they have some quirky things about them, in that they believe that they will... that's right, the big thing was that they received a message from Alta, who's one of the supreme beings who contact them, saying that in 2001 the aliens will land and make contact with humankind and help solve Earth's problems. As far as I'm aware, that hasn't happened. I'm not sure. I don't remember that happening, but anyway. And that was the Palladians. The the Palladians were going to come.
Oh, right.
And over a period of about 5 years, I think it was, by 2010, so 9 years, over a period of 9 years, something like 33 spacecraft were going to come to Earth, huge spacecraft with all these aliens on board to help us solve our problems over the next few years. So with them, again, it's the kind of thing where they expect a lot from our alien friends. They're here to save us. But with them at least, it's not the kind of what I consider the horror story of the Raelians. Certainly some people might think it's fun getting into by the way, you can't get into the Raelians unless you're
I'd love
intelligent.
to do a psychological profile.
Intelligent?
You've got to be intelligent, you've got to be 10% above
I mean,
the rest
Mensa.
above the average intelligence
Oh,
to be a part of them.
I mean, Mensa, does that count?
Geniocrity is their
Yeah.
favourite thing, their favourite word. They believe that the world should be ruled by geniocrity, and that only geniuses be allowed to rule the world. That is to
Like the
say
Simpsons.
that
With my Lisa and Stephen Hawking.
10% above average are allowed to have a partial vote, I think it is, but the rulers are those who are in the top 10% or something. So it's a graduated, but the people, anyone below 10% above the average, don't get a look in.
That wouldn't be such a bad
But the
idea.
funny thing is, geniuses aren't necessarily good leaders anyway.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
But that wouldn't be such a bad idea if you had like people who can do maths and that, like off numbers that can predict stuff.
But look, there's a lot more we could go into.
Sage.
It's one of these subjects that has got heaps and heaps of pages. I found a couple of hundred pages just by going like that. Wikipedia, by the way, is a great site to find a lot of this information, as well as all the books on the subject. But
Can I ask a question? That back in the 1990s, there was a series of books that came out, and I can't remember what they were called. And it was supposedly about abductions. And it was a bestseller at the time, the main one.
Whitley Strieber stuff, was it Communion?
Yes.
communion, yeah.
Now the thing that struck me about those was that the beings, and I think he even makes a statement himself, how much they relate to mythological beings. And I got the strong impression that a lot of what these people, the genuine ones who have an encounter, I'm not saying all, but a large percentage of them are actually encountering Devas.
Yeah.
That they're crossing into the David kingdom
Yeah.
in some way or other, because little green men with the big eyes are elves,
Yeah.
so to speak. So to me that is one of the explanations. I have read accounts people have had which go beyond it, and I don't know how to explain it.
Although I know Whitley Strieber's communion, he was talking about several different aliens. He was pretty close to the first to describe the oval type of shape, the grey type of alien with the big large eyes and the small limbs and that type of thing. And interestingly, after his stuff came out and after his movie came out, that's when you started to see a lot more of these aliens or reported encounters of these aliens, and people started to draw them. So that's when I started to think, well, there's got to be something to the power of suggestion, that people are perhaps seeing these things because it had been shown to them by Whitley. I'm not saying that they didn't encounter them, but when you see that all these people are seeing them after this event, you start to think,
The believable kind of ones that I've seen on TV, for example, aren't the characters out of Star Trek. They're so far-fetched, it's ridiculous. But you know, the ones that I believe might exist is, you know, the humanoid type ones that we see, like in Close Encounters, we've got the guys with the big head, you know, and the little, you know, the fragile bodies and the real big brain thing with the eyes. they're kind of like, when I see those sorts of aliens on, they say sometimes that the stuff we see on TV, it comes from the collective that was created. I mean, that does something for me which I can't explain. I don't know what it does, but there's something that it affects me spiritually when I see those little creatures. But the others, the Star Trek characters where they've got, seven different... I love Star Trek, it's great, but where you've got these characters, they've all got their own nationalities and planets and their own language and stuff like that. I don't know, that I can't relate to that, but I believe, I don't know, like you often talk about greys and things like that. What are they? What is a grey? Can you explain to me what a grey is? Are they extraterrestrials or are they part of the astral world?
The ones I know are supposed to come from Zeta 2 Reticuli. Is that the ones you were talking about? Zeta 2 Reticuli?
Oh, I've heard of that. I haven't sort of... I don't know, my sense of my experiences with that energy is that they're not good. I think the thing that concerns me, I don't care much these days, is that the bulk of the alien encounters, I suspect, are probably not good. And that I think that they've, which you could do if you were them, with that superior technology, deceive the collective. And a lot of what is channeled and what people say about them is very, very interesting, very simplistic, and a lot of what theosophy supposes without depth. And it's like New Agers swallow this up and swallow that up and just assume because they've had an encounter with some sort of extra or ultra-terrestrial. Ultra, I think, is the sense that they come through the astral, astral energies. And the greys, I think, from what I know of them and their energies, this is what they do. And the fact that the bulk of abductees report that they're greys tells me they're not good beings, because thou shalt not abduct another against one's will. I think it's a fairly standard truth, I would think. So that makes me suspicious of them.
But if they're so powerful that they can abduct human beings and they've got superior technology, I mean, my question is, why aren't they power hungry enough to take over the world?
Well, part of the theory is that that's what they've done.
In the consciousness.
But it might be like Star Trek. They might have what's the policy, the written policy that they're not allowed
Prime Directive.
Prime Directive and not allowed
Because
to.
you think like basically, like
a vampire energy, or they might feed off negative energies. I have a sense, part of my theory is that it's like a draconian. They want to impact on humanity that materialism and separateness is the way to go. They feed off that, and we're like children, and they know, well, we can. I mean, the obvious way of influencing a society is not through obvious control and dictatorship. If you've got a superior technology, you're not maybe a good energy, you can shit all over this little mob down there on Earth, how would you take over control and want everyone to think that
in an insidious manner
you weren't even in existence? Would be a good way of doing it.
That's what I feel like you have to think like
so
them.
that's sort of a bit of the sense of the grey that I have. They don't bother me
That's what I find
much, but that's just the notions I've gathered over 20 years.
Because that's what I feel like you have to think like them. Like, think how the aliens would think. Like, if you want to find like the aliens, like, I don't know if you see that movie Contact, when aliens were communicating through prime numbers and through like maths and that.
But you're talking a fairly benign alien there, though. Not one that's going to go do anything to harm you.
I doubt if most of the alien contacts that people say they have are of benefit to us. Just to assume it's an alien and therefore some sort of God may not be exactly how it works. They may in fact be more destructive.
I think, from my opinion, is from a theist. I don't know. I more believe in what you said before. I think that people get Deva energies mixed up with aliens, and I personally don't believe in aliens. I think that in our solar system, I kind of like take the scientific view. You know, there's enough. There might be energies out there, different other, you know, the astral energy, and as I said, the different layers in the cosmos. But as entities in a three-dimensional physical form like we are, I don't believe it. I think that it's more
Well, they're not three.
astral.
They are astral.
It's an astral thing, and I think a lot of it is out there anyway, which is part of the cosmos. But I also think it's our own projected stuff as well, and it's all kind of like.
I think it's a mixture of things.
That's that too.
Probably from the purely scientific notion of today's current scientific thinking, there's no way a spaceship could go from Alpha Centaurus to planet Earth.
Not with our technology.
Not with our
we
current
know it.
concept of technology. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they may be at some other point in time with technology. But the reality is, we can sit and watch Star Trek and they can zoom through space, but we really can't zoom through space.
We can't break the light barrier.
Stephen Hawking looked at the time warp engine on Star Trek and said, we're working on that. So I think, if anything, if it's possible to be thought of, I think it's possible to exist at some time or place. But I think the majority of what people see as sightings are a combination of either Davic, and the Davic world is a huge world that we don't know anything about much. It can be our own projections from our own emotional, mental desires. It can be man-made things that we haven't been told about much, that's been kept secret. But there may be somewhere in amongst all that a percentage that is something. I mean, I do believe there is life on other planets and that life is in different stages. It's even said in our own solar system, the focus of life in the solar system in the human form is on planet Earth. But every planet in the solar system has its own level of consciousness. Some behind us, some ahead of us. And one of the interesting things that I wish, sometimes you see something you wish you had taped it and kept it. And I'm going back about 3 or 4 years ago now, I saw an interview between Paul Davies and Philip Adams on the ABC. And the question came up about how did life start on Earth? And of course the mainstream scientific thing is the boiling mud pools and the chemistry and creating the first life forms. And Davies said, well, actually we're rethinking all that at the moment, because what they've discovered down in Antarctica are meteorites, and the meteorites have on them single-celled creatures that can be reanimated. They're in frozen state. But these meteorites come from Mars. And he said what we are now theorising, and it was only just in the early stages, that life was actually seeded from Mars on planet Earth. And I remember thinking, oh, that Peter's going to be right. Because he talks about I can't remember how, this isn't quite
so there was a Martian colony.
There was a Martian colony, but we're not talking about hundreds of thousands, we're talking about millions of years
billions
ago.
probably, maybe.
Yeah, it's a totally different cycle. But that there is a connection between the Martian world and the Moon-Earth chain. I can't remember exactly how it goes now.
The planet's orbits could have shifted in the millions of
yes,
years, and Mars
could
could have had the ideal conditions to have life forms.
And then now
But remember, we're still arguing from the perspective that we are the only intelligent life form in the universe. This is still where the basic argument comes from.
That's where the problem is.
And that's deeply flawed.
Yes.
It's a very human-centric
You have
approach,
to
isn't it?
say, and even given the mathematical possibilities, the universe is a plethora of life.
Yes.
And we know in theosophy that we have a body with subtle bodies, and that each more subtlety in the body extends the physical distance. But this, we're not talking about even that, it's on an energetic level.
Quantum.
Well, we can be then, in theory, sitting here, but when part of me's on Mars right now.
Now, yes, this is another aspect of it
But
too,
we're
yes.
not, I haven't developed that capacity which a master might have, one might think, of knowing, well, my body's sitting here, but I'm doing this 12 light years away.
Yes.
But I wonder how
Because
do we,
that's where I wish to be, or I am, and I am aware that I'm there.
but I wonder how
So
we
that can allow anything as
People,
possible.
yeah.
If it all exists, and it is, you
I
know.
wonder how we know, like, if, like, our whole culture isn't affected by aliens all the time. Like, okay, say for example, religion. Like, we had the concept of good and evil, God or the devil.
There's theories I've read of that's
Yeah.
the very concept
Because-
of religion as we know it, the mass, is an energy
Yeah,
of
because-
negativity.
If, like, the aliens
And
could
it's
be
not-
ethereal,
The God
like, from
that's
another
good,
planet.
if you
because
like.
that's what I believe, like, for anything to survive radiation,
Yeah.
and that they can't be a physical entity, so they have to be, like, an ethereal entity to survive radiation, or even to go through space, like, to be interdimensional to survive. So, if aliens were like our concept of God, or like, for example, Jesus, why did Jesus walk on the water? Like, he must have been.
Well, that's a simple
Right.
thing. Yeah.
That's a symbolic
That's-
thing.
Well, this guy I read, he got an answer for it. I forget it's in the page. I saw
Yeah,
it.
but-
Or was it?
But the
Well,
Tibetans,
David's on
Tibetans can do all that. I mean, any yogi can walk on water. That's nothing to do with being a god.
So can I, it's
Like,
called ice.
But anything like ethereal,
Yeah, the talk.
or like anything ethereal, or what we call, like what we class as coincidence, and that
Yeah.
could it actually be like some kind of. If we can't explain it with logic, if we can't explain it with probability,
It doesn't exist, eh?
yeah, but it's like so that.
That's the skeptic scientific point of view, isn't
But
it?
like because that's why I believe that one day, like when we, like human race becomes more smarter, our brains become more developed, we can understand more. We can
Not when our
understand
brains
more.
develop, when our consciousness is developed.
Yeah,
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
And we'll wake,
Transmute.
we
actually
can wake up
transmute.
dead tomorrow, and I'm
But-
sure we'll
but-
have
but-
different
But
perspectives.
like for example, like,
no, we're not dead.
but for like example, geniuses can like calculate all these formulas. They can calculate have like
Yeah.
models, mathematical models to explain a lot of things.
They
Everyone
do, but
smarter than
a genius can just have a really great mind in physical form, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their higher consciousness is any more developed than someone that's quite simple with a low IQ.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a measurement of
No,
the
it's
No.
not a
quality of the
measurement of
soul.
height. It's
No.
not. Yeah, it's nothing to do with the
But
soul,
to
or
understand
spiritual
things.
development. You know.
Because isn't one of the things too, one of the beliefs is that we experience different things to advance ourselves at that level. And that may mean that in this life, for example, we have to have a disability or whatever else.
Absolutely.
And we may be very slow in this life. And yet, we're not slow at all in our true self. Our true self isn't slow at all, but it had to experience that.
Yes.
I don't know, does anybody watch that show Numbers?
Yes, oh, I know.
About,
yeah.
Like the guy solving crime with maths?
Yeah.
Like they have forensics, like that's why like
And he does all the
Analogy.
probabilities and all that. Yeah. He
Yeah.
dropped everything again.
because it will explain like a lot of things by maths and that.
Yeah, but it's only explaining physical things, it's not explaining...
You going to join up ahead?
Yeah, but if they like change it to be ethereal, like
Don't join anymore.
if like the real things
We're in
are like a
philosophy.
realm of like as physics about like say for example, you know, about the superstring or the grand unified theory. Yeah, but that's just a theory until they prove it.
Now I've got
The other thing I was going to throw in, when you were talking a little while ago, I remember there was a movie, there's a book, it's like, I've seen it as a movie, I've read the book,
Oh,
years
okay.
ago. And it was called The Martian Chronicles. Now,
Oh,
was
yeah.
it Ray Bradbury?
Bradbury, yeah.
It was Ray Bradbury. The interesting thing in that story was it was about us going to Mars and colonising Mars. But at the beginning of the show, or the book, a group of astronauts go there to check out the place, and they find that there's what they think is human habitation. Then they come back to Earth, and then later on the colony goes there with Rock Hudson as the
yeah, that's right.
And in the meantime, all the Martians are being wiped out by a virus that we took there in the first place.
Yeah, that'd be right.
But the interesting thing was that Rock Hudson's character kept saying, but there's Martians here.
Yeah, you could get that and
And the reality was there were Martians there, but they revolved. They were adepts.
Ah.
They were just consciousness, and they moved around.
That's right. They had ethereal ships, didn't they?
Yes.
Sailing ships that were
Yes.
massive things that floated across the ground.
Yes,
Isn't there
that's
supposed to be the existence, you've told me this, there's the existence of the ethereal planet called Vulcan that there is,
yes,
and it's
Yeah.
behind
There
the
actually
sun.
is.
yes,
Yeah, they
Vulcan's
say
a-
that, don't they?
yes.
So,
it's
yeah,
theosophical.
God.
Originally I heard of that through theosophy, but then I remembered
Natural book.
after a while that it wasn't just theosophy that came up with it. That,
No, it's somewhere else.
yeah, that probably in the 1800s there was a planet called Vulcan.
And
Was supposed to be
hence kind of like the representation of the, you know, like the Vulcans on TV as being quite mystical and, you know, mythological and
Yes.
deep, you know, the telepathic powers that they have and all that sort of stuff.
Because there's something on Vulcan is like
Because they mastered their
Greek
emotions.
god.
They've
I think
mastered
it's-
the emotions.
You wanna join,
that's
Diane?
right.
It's that kind of, it's in mythology, the god Vulcan.
Vulcan's Roman.
Roman, that's
yeah,
it.
He's the god of fire, I think, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Fire. That's
It
why you
comes
get
from
the
it.
Vulcan heaters.
Yes, exactly. That's right. What's his Greek name?
We should
It's,
do that, wouldn't it?
Is it
Pyros, isn't it?
Hephaestus?
Hephaestus, yes, that's right. Which is the volcano thing, yeah.
Well, see, because there was also a planet that was supposedly between Mars and Jupiter.
Is it etheric as well?
No, it was a real planet. It was blown to
Is
smithereens,
it
Oh,
very
right.
close?
which is why the asteroid built.
oh, yes.
So that's when you start thinking about this other stuff like the moon having been a planet, this other planet having been a planet at one stage. Interestingly enough, I was watching a Stargate episode last night from our collection at home, and there was a story there about these aliens who'd come to Earth and helped, and it was 2010. And at this stage, what had happened was that they were systematically destroying the human race, but what they were doing was they were setting up Jupiter as a new star for the solar system. So that what would happen is, like, you're terraforming Jupiter to become a star, but in the process all the planetoids and planets around it would then have life on them, or be able to develop life on them.
Actually,
Which is a suggestion of what some of the giant planets could have been used for, apart from the obvious fact that they're also like an intelligent design of protecting the Earth from the huge, massive things out there.
But there's also something, I don't know what's in theosophy, that says that Jupiter is going to become a sun.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard
That
something.
eventually it's going to become its own little solar system.
I do like the
Now-
solar alchemy.
I'm not too sure what timing we're talking.
I know there's some references of a larger star behind Jupiter that we can't perceive, but its energies can be detected. And science recently has noticed there's some strange anomalies with red spot they can't account for.
Oh, right.
And it's an energy much bigger, more powerful than Jupiter itself could even generate.
Right.
And that
But what like,
it's
we
known
mentioned,
as the larger star behind that, yeah. Well, it's a lot we don't know, right?
There's a hell of a lot of
because
that.
like you mentioned like the
Well, when you consider there's a red spot there that's been there for 300 or 400 years that we know, and it's a swirling massive storm that's been going there all that time.
And even Sanat Kamara, he's come from Venus. Well, that's freaking, he's an alien, isn't he, you know?
It's like you mentioned, like an ethereal planet.
That's
Like, I wonder, like,
in the secret
how you go
doctrine.
detecting ethereal
The
planets.
Sanat Kumaras are the sort of
Yeah.
these higher beings.
Well,
And I got so
you want
big
to
news back in the
worship a
80s
god.
when
That's the
all
one.
those people were claiming to be channeling the Sanat Kumara
Yeah, they
to
do.
give them stock exchange information. I kept thinking, how did they comprehend that something of the magnitude of those
Is he one
creative
of the
beings?
Brotherhood? Is he in the
He's
Brotherhood?
the Lord of all the lords that ever was
Yes.
in the whole story.
Yes,
The
it's-
Sanat, he's the master of all the masters.
You're not talking about the Great White Brotherhood.
No, it's big,
Yeah.
much
Yeah, he-
beyond
he-
that. I mean,
He's
it's
way beyond
the
that.
Kumaras are the
Isn't he supposed
creation
to come
beings.
from,
Venus.
yeah, Venus,
Yes,
but
that
didn't you
there's,
say that
well,
there was,
He claims that. He claims that the
Yeah.
aliens come from every planet in the solar system.
Well, they might well too.
And they're there now.
We're the biggest aliens of all in the solar
But it
universe.
depends on
But
what
they all look like
we
us.
must
They
have,
all-
we must
they all
have
look like
to
us.
test his
Oh,
bodies
tricky
then. It must be.
shapeshifters.
His solar system.
solar system, yes.
Because
You know,
Mars
the
can
rest
do
must
Mercury.
Who's an alien in
Oh,
this
Venus.
I, to
I've got a
insist
couple of
on
clues.
planets like Jupiter that they couldn't have a physical body. In the Secret Doctrine, she talks about the races, and the first two races are astro-etheric. It's only the third race that becomes physical.
We start to clump up.
And those first two, she calls them the pudding bags. And I
Oh,
was
that's
thinking
right.
of your,
Yeah.
when you said before about these amoebas up in the sky,
Yes.
that might be remnants of the
Yeah.
pudding bags.
And that was just before you started coughing.
But I wonder how they go detecting them. Like, okay, say for example, if aliens are on every planet, like, they look for water to find organic life. I wonder what kind of markers they need to find ethereal aliens.
Not according to George. They came and contacted him.
Yeah, but like, if they have like a whole SETI thing to expand their range, like, we're talking about ethereal planets. If it's like ethereal planets, if I can like actually detect these ethereal planets or find the
Yeah.
aliens.
But one of the problems with the physical world is you can't really create a device to measure ethereal things.
But if I could, it would be interesting. Like,
You
Black
get-
holes
like-
is what fascinates
Basically,
me.
you're going to do it
Like
with
you can
consciousness more than
Yeah.
yeah,
anything.
because like you can find all these things, like
The black holes where where they actually go and they, you know, like they go into other dimensions, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. You know,
Because
I've always thought that the Earth and us actually exist elsewhere as well at the same time. You know, that whole theory,
Yes,
the
of
quantum thing, where you
yeah.
can be in multiple kind of realms and universes at the same time.
I think it stands to
That
reason
case
multiverses though.
of people, I remember reading this, you know, they were in one period of time and they just turn up somewhere else in another completely different period of time. And there's quite a few documentary accounts of that.
Yeah, here on planet Earth, yes.
Yeah, right here.
And
you know, we could be
it's-
sitting here and then, shit, there's a Roman battlefield. You know, and then I'm back again.
Yeah, but remember Philip Greer? Philip, who was Scott, he said one day he was at his grandmother's place and she sent him down to the shop. And over there they believe if you step on certain, they call it something sod, you cross over. And he said
Oh, okay.
all of a sudden he was just walking down the street, next thing he was in a totally different scenario. And he managed to get himself back eventually, but he crossed over into
yeah, it could be like in the Doctor Who, like the rifts.
yes.
Yeah, they have like the rifts
Rifts,
of
yes,
time. Like
yeah.
that's why I reckon like in a couple of 100 years time, like they'll probably have like if SETI survives with the funding about expand the new search parameters to look for like extraterrestrial things or etherical things.
They're probably
like,
doing that all
if
now, but they just don't
searching.
tell us.
Well, I mean, if you remember the experiments of the 1940s, 50s and 60s on
The ship
ESP and all that type of thing. No, not the Philadelphia experiment, but ESP type experiments and the
That's
like.
right, yes.
And what do they call it? Psionics?
Yeah, psionics, that's it.
Now,
That's what I was thinking of.
psionics is one of those things.
Like with the generator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
back-
psionic generators and all that kind of stuff. Psionic generators are supposed to be the kind of things that can also pick up alien spacecraft flying past as well.
Yeah.
But they're also supposed to do all kinds of other magical things that we don't know much about.
I wonder if it's possible to make them with it. Or is
I
it just a
figured that
big...
if there's aliens out there and
myth.
they're with spacecraft, they must find us pretty bloody bad.
Well,
They might find us funny.
We might be ants to them in a colony or something.
Yeah.
But like, they might have like
probe them there and see what happens.
but they have like the
Might be their
they have like the radiation detectors, like
Watch what happens when I do this.
yeah. But they have like the radiation detectors to detect the radiation. How radio astronomy was founded. If they had like a psionic detector,
Yeah.
they can detect if there's aliens out there, like or even if they're not alien, if they're organic, but they have like a brain, they have like an aura to them, they have a chi energy or Gaia of their planet, they can detect that.
You know what I want to know?
Right.
I want to know how the aliens in ID4, in Independence Day, how the aliens in Independence Day are able to build anything.
Yeah.
They had these little flimsy little
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but mind control, maybe.
things like that for hands,
Telekinesis.
and they built these gigantic spacecraft that took over the world.
Yes,
Yeah.
sometimes they
Little
go
bits.
crazy in some of those science
Like
fiction.
Yeah, they might look scary, but geez, what could they build? Honestly.
But if you pretty like if
For
you like
like kids, eh?
yeah, but if you mind you like with the environment,
Like
like
these
you do
long
stuff.
tentacle type things. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they do with them?
But like, if you like evolve to a state where you use your mind to do something like telekinesis, if I can read minds, if I can use my mind to build things like an extra set of arms.
It'd have to be pretty strong power.
Yeah, but they evolve to that state.
Yeah.
Like, if their arms have become useless, their brains will evolve. Like, for example, okay.
I think the
We-
brain
we-
evolved, the hands have been created
Yeah,
as a tool.
the
so they would
dynamite
fight
farm,
with
like,
that, would they?
we come out from the trees. If we come out from the trees, like while we
And
use
if
our
we-
arms because
no, we
we're
did it.
swimming, while we use our legs
Right.
to walk.
Mm.
So we evolved to that state. For like an alien who doesn't have like strong arm muscles, but could evolve more mentally to adapt to the environment.
I think I'm going to still keep it and use my arms so I don't lose them.
Yeah, but like that's why I reckon aliens evolve to
Used to
adapt to their
opportunity.
environment.
Actually, I think it's been said in some of the theosophical writings that the human structure,
It's about
or
zero.
the humanoid,
Jeez, now I've shot on
the humanoid structure is a archetype that goes right throughout the universe. To be in this particular point of consciousness, you need all these appendages have been developed through eons of evolution
Even
because
our
they are
animals.
useful.
But even our animals, if you look at the animals, you know, I mean, a lot of, you often hear, like even Stephen said this morning, we were watching one of the morning shows before going to work, and there was a porpoise, you know, like a sea lion thing in the morning. And and I said, isn't that cute, you know, like this. And I said to Stephen, isn't it amazing how these faces, we've all got eyes and a nose, and no matter what animal you look at, unless it's, you know, one of these microorganisms where it's a clump of cells, but most of the animals in all the different classes of animals seem to have a face, they've got eyes, they've got a mouth, they've got some sort of